As training camp kicks off, the Saints are clearly staring into the great unknown. The unquestioned leader for the last 15 years is gone. The $100 million receiver isn't here, and multiple players could face multiple game suspensions. The winningest team in the NFL over the last 4 seasons faces real, large questions at the start of camp. But the cupboard is far from empty, and the coach has shown an ability to win even when he doesn't have all the pieces in place. Tonight, we'll dive into the questions facing the Saints this summer.
From Channel 4, this is an Eye on Black and Gold training camp special.
Never in the Sean Payton era has there been this much uncertainty at the start of training camp, and it seems from Marshon Lattimore to David Onyemata to Mike Thomas, more adversity keeps piling on. I'm Doug Mouton, and that's where we start training camp. Welcome to our Eye on the Black and Gold training camp special. Our Saints analyst Nick Underhill joins us in just a minute. Ricardo LeCompte, Andrew Doak are both live to join us as we lay out where we are with the Saints right now. And let's start in Metairie with Andrew and the Mike Thomas situation.
Hey, Doug, yeah, almost a year later, we are still talking about Michael Thomas's injury that cost him most of the 2020 season, and now it looks like it's going to cost him at least some of the 2021 season, and his head coach is not happy about it. Why Michael Thomas waited until June to have surgery on his ankle is still the million-dollar question for the $100 million wide receiver. And during Sean Payton's initial press conference to open training camp Wednesday, it was obvious Payton was livid with Thomas's decision to wait.
Well, look, it appears we're going to have to spend some time without him. It's disappointing, and we'll work through it with the other players that are here. But the surgery took place, and obviously, we would have liked that to have happened earlier than later. And quite honestly, it should have.
Can you explain? I mean, was there a lack of communication in between?
Nope.
Or?
Nope. I'm going to leave it at that.
Sean Payton's face says it all, and the hits just keep on coming for the Saints this offseason. David Onyemata has been suspended 6 games for a banned substance. Marshon Lattimore is expected to miss some time after being arrested this offseason while he was allegedly carrying a stolen handgun. And then we also learned today that Deontay Harris was arrested in Maryland on July 16th for a DUI. In the past, players have been suspended 2 games for that, so that's the expectation. Tre'Quan Smith now has to be the #1 receiver in the Saints offense, but he has yet to even put together a 500-yard season. Maybe this is the year he finally puts it all together.
Sadly, Mike being gone for, how long he's going to be gone. So the opportunity is basically up to me. If I do what I got to do and I focus on my plays and myself, I feel like the opportunity can be substantial.
The opportunity will be significant, but it's the furthest thing from ideal as the Saints will now be waiting again for number 13 to get right. And like I said, the frustration is obviously palpable between Sean Payton and Mike Thomas. It's uncertain the dynamic of their relationship right now, but look, Payton called out Thomas publicly through the media to express his frustration with how Thomas handled this situation, and that is not something that Sean Payton usually does, Doug.
Yeah, no doubt about that, and we'll talk about that with Nick in a minute. And Mike Thomas and the suspensions have taken some of the spotlight off of what should be the big story. It is, for the first time in 15 years, the Saints need to find a starting quarterback. Ricardo has that story as we kick off camp. Ricardo.
Yeah, Doug, it is a little weird not seeing Drew Brees under center at a Saints training camp practice, but that's the situation out in Metairie this year. And either Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston will be the one to take over for number 9 when the regular season starts. I was at the first practice this morning. Hill took the snaps with the first team, Winston the second. But it was Winston that stood out on day 1. He displayed that arm talent that made him a number 1 overall pick in the 2015 draft. Sean Payton said after practice that both Winston and Hill will rotate with the 1s and 2s throughout camp. Now, we may have our favorite to win the job, but it will be a legit QB competition. And while it goes on, the Saints will equally support each of their signal callers.
I thought today's first practice was good. I thought, the rotation will keep changing day by day. And I was taught early on, let's evaluate what we see what we see on film, and so that's formulated by a lot of reps.
That's what I tell Taysom and Jameis, like, whatever you need from me, whether it's, if you need me to point the mic, anything, just let me know, because I know they got a lot on their plate, and I mean, they gotta come out here and deliver and be on point for everybody, not just themselves.
The different things Taysom can do, being a Swiss Army knife for so many years, and then primarily at quarterback, you know, everything Jameis brings, the arm strength, his confidence, his swagger, his moxie, you know, two unique personalities.
And veteran left tackle Teron Armstead hit the nail on the head. These are two unique QB talents, and that may affect the install of the offense during training camp. Sean Payton says that's the challenge working with these two, but he's confident he can work through it, Doug.
Yeah, it's an interesting new problem for the Saints. All right, let's bring in our Saints analyst, Nick Underhill now. Nick, starting with Mike Thomas in that situation, it seemed to me Sean Payton was clearly sending a message to Thomas. We rarely see him visibly upset with a player in a press conference. What did you read into that?
Yeah, Doug, I thought that was really interesting because Mike Thomas and Sean Payton have had a really close relationship. And Mike has really been one of Sean's favorite players on the team. He's always been really high on him. He's defended him when some of these tough situations have come up over the years. And this was kind of felt like a little bit of a breaking point where they were extremely frustrated with him for not getting this done on time. He went to a specialist almost immediately after the season. There was a follow-up appointment. It never happened for whatever reason. That's not quite clear. And then what happened after that, it just doesn't seem like the things that should have got done did get done.
Yeah, Nick, the next question is, does Thomas's absence and then likely Deontay Harris at the start of the season as well, how might that lack of weapons affect the quarterback battle? Will it?
I don't know if it affects the quarterback battle, but it might affect how they perform. Look, Mike Thomas was given this $100 million contract to help this transition period. It was A, to help Drew Brees age gracefully, and then B, if they didn't get a superstar quarterback to come in to replace Brees, they needed someone to help carry that burden. It's interesting that Sean Payton yesterday said that he didn't view wide receiver as one of the most pressing issues for this team, because I think looking at it, it is a troubling area, and they've always at least had one wide receiver that's been able to get open when everything else went wrong. So even if they do believe in their scheme, which it seems like they do to get guys open, when things go bad, where's Jameis Winston able to go with the ball to get out of trouble? Where's Taysom Hill able to go with the ball? So on the field, I think it's going to affect the performance, but as far as the evaluation of the quarterbacks, I don't know if it changes anything.
Yeah, all right. Well, look, Nick, hang with us. We're going to get some predictions on who wins the quarterback battle and a regular season win total from Nick, Ricardo, and Andrew. But next, the part of the preseason we cannot ignore, vaccination rates and fan expectations in the midst of a COVID surge. Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis on those subjects. That's ahead on our Eye on the Black and Gold training camp special.
I think everybody understands my leadership style, but like going back to me saying I kind of emulate and try to learn how Drew led. Obviously, he's not here no more, and guys are looking to be led by somebody.
Well, certainly when you lose a player of that magnitude, you don't have a player like that. I mean, it's, you know, who we kidding? That's a Hall of Famer that just walked out of the locker room. That you look at all these banners up here. He's a huge reason why all those banners are up here. You can't take that away. And so certainly there's going to be, you know, a void or something that's going to happen. There's going to be a shift in the locker room.
I would be misleading everybody to trick myself into believing that I need to be Drew to lead this team. You know, I think my biggest thing is just focusing on being me and how I lead and doing that every day.
You don't know leaders in the good times. You know leaders during challenges, during adversity. And it's about rising to the occasion. It's about rising to meet that challenge, whatever it is. So can we forecast what those challenges are going to be, what those obstacles are going to be? I don't think it's too early to tell.
I mean, that's all it is. I think just being me and just bringing the energy that I have every day and doing the right thing.
As the season, you know, unfolds itself, different guys will rise to the occasion, different guys will stand up. You know, 5'6" going to do what 5'6" do. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, there is definitely a leadership void to be filled. Kamara and Davis are obviously two guys who are enormously respected in the Saints locker room. Now, we've talked a lot about the issues facing the Saints this summer, but there's also some good news. The Saints' COVID vaccination rate among players is one of the highest in the NFL. And And that matters this season because the NFL says if a game has to be postponed because of a high number of COVID positives, that team may have to forfeit the game and therefore not get paid for that game. Both Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton were asked about the team's vaccination rate.
We're lucky enough to have a real high percentage of vaccinated players. And I'm going to count the guys that are in process. We're going to be well over 90%.
Clearly, there are other teams that are behind where we're at.
At least within the building, we can operate, relatively normal.
And despite the surge in COVID cases, the Saints still plan to have fans at 7 outdoor practices in Metairie.
We have, protocols that we have in place don't allow much contact between our staff and those fans, but they can come out and watch. And look, I hope they do. I hope they turn out like they would in any year. And I think we always practice better when it's in front of the fans.
And more important than practice, the Saints definitely want and expect a full Superdome this fall.
Currently, we expect full houses at the stadium. That's important for the New Orleans Saints. It's important for our home games to have the crowds that we've had over the years. They're loud, they affect the game.
Obviously, we want to play in front of our fans. That's a huge advantage for us. I think it means a lot. I think it means a lot to your players.
Yeah, and for now, 5 of the 7 outdoor practices are either sold out or very close to being sold out. There are tickets still available to 2 outdoor practices. Clearly, fans are anxious to come back to the Saints facility in Metairie. Now, when we come back, predictions from Nick, Ricardo, Andrew, and me. Who wins the quarterback battle, and how many games will the Saints win? That is ahead on our Eye on the Black and Gold training camp special. We are exactly 1 unpadded practice into training camp, so you know what? It's time to ask some questions, and we'll start with this one. Who plays quarterback? Is it Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill? Nick, you're up first. What do you think?
Doug, I don't think there's a whole lot of reason to overthink this one. I think Jameis Winston is the more talented player out of the two. And I'm not going to make too much out of one practice, but I think we saw some examples of the differences between these two players today, and that Jameis Winston, he went 7 of 8 passing. His 1 incompletion was an absolute pass interference by Ken Crawley. And Taysom Hill was really solid today, too. He was 6 of 8, but the difference is Jameis Winston was able to attack down the field. He was hitting the intermediate throws. It wasn't just check down, check down, check down, and he's just a much more dynamic player. And I think on a team where you're losing some weapons, being able to hit some big plays at some point is going to make a difference. And I think he has more of that ability in the things that he's able to do. And then the other part of this is if you start losing weapons on offense, can you really take another weapon away from your offense? And now you got to find more ways to manufacture yards. So I think Taysom Hill's too valuable in his role, and I think Jameis Winston simply is the better quarterback.
Yeah, Nick, and I agree. And I was out there at practice as well, and Jameis looked really sharp. I know it's just a small sample size, but he looked really good. And he will win this job simply because he is the better quarterback than Taysom Hill. But I think Winston needs to be in a legitimate competition instead of getting the keys to the Saints offense just handed to him. Winston has always been the best player at the position, whether it's high school, college at Florida State, or even in the NFL when he was drafted by the Bucs. But now he's got to earn this, and I think it will draw the best out of him. And in turn, keeping him from making those mistakes he had while he was in Tampa Bay, like a 30-interception season he had in his final year there. Winston will win this job in camp, and we'll get the best version of him during the regular season. Andrew, who's your choice?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jameis Winston as well. I wish I would almost break apart from the pack here. But look, I just think this is the most talented quarterback that the Saints have. I think there's a reason why the Saints went and got him last season when he was on the open market, even though Taysom Hill was already in the building. I think they had some question marks, although they've built him up going into this season as far as Hill is concerned. But I think Jameis Winston's arm talent is a key factor in this. I think he has more experience in big games, and I think he's going to help the Saints win some of those big games. And I think Sean Payton really believes he's going to have a chance to be able to mold him because he already has so many great assets, but he's going to help him limit some of those interceptions and turnovers and I think take him to the next level. Doug?
Well, that is certainly the goal, and I hate to keep banging the same drum, but I'm going to go with you guys. I do think the Saints can win games with Taysom Hill at quarterback, but if the bar is winning a Super Bowl, and I think with Sean Payton it always will be, the Saints are going to have to be able to do it all, and simply put, Jameis Winston has far more upside throwing the ball. The Saints couldn't throw it upfield last year, so when they got behind the Bucs in the playoffs, it was really over. Jameis Winston, I think, gives you the best chance to win any kind of a game, but definitely if the Saints have to come from behind. And then the big question for everybody, how many wins will this team get? It's a 17-game season. The William Hill Sportsbook and all the other ones I checked today have the Saints at 9 wins for the Las Vegas over-under. Nick, how many games will the Saints win?
I'm going to stick with 10. I think that's a fair number for this team. I think they still have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. It might take a little bit to get those guys out there. David Onyemata is out for 6 games. Deontay Harris is probably going to miss 2 or 3. Mike Thomas, probably at least the first month of the season. But the thing is I think these are short-term problems, and I think that they'll be able to find some answers to get through them. During the first 6 games, if they can go 500 and win games against teams like Washington, the Giants, Carolina, maybe even the Patriots, I think those are all winnable games for them. So if you get to that 6-week point and you're 500, I think they still have a very good chance at getting to 10 wins. And if it does happen to be 9, I think 9's still good enough to get into the playoffs. It's not going to be the easiest job in the world for them to get there. Sean Payton's really going to have to coach well, and he's going to have to prove that his scheme can get some of these other lesser wide receivers open. But we've seen him do that for 15 years, turning guys like Willie Snead into someone that people really believed was a 1,000-yard receiver. So if he comes and coaches the way that we think he can coach, I think they can still get to that 10-win total.
And I think to that point, every time we seem to doubt Sean Payton in these types of situations, he somehow finds a way to overcome those and end up getting more wins than I think we originally think. Now, I did have it at double-digit wins. I had it at 11, but I think I dropped that total after that, especially after Michael Thomas had his surgery last month, and now he's going to miss a significant part of the first part of the season. So I'm pushing mine down to 9. So it's a push, and I still think that is good to make the postseason. But I think there's just too many holes on the roster that the Saints have to cover up. And I think where the season is make or break is kind of where you said right after that week 7. After week 6, after week 7, they'll be at full strength, and we'll have the offense under whoever the starting quarterback is for a few weeks. They get 2 NFC South games against the Bucs and Falcons, followed by 2 on the road at the Titans and Eagles, and then they host the Bills. How they navigate that stretch will be telling for that final win total. Andrew, what's your number at?
Ricardo, I'm going to match you. I'm going to go with 9 wins. I think if all things were equal and you weren't dealing with some of these potential suspensions and players out that the Saints are going to be dealing with, I feel like this could be an 11-6 or 12-5 type ball club. I really do. I think they would have had that ability, but I think that it's going to be just too much to overcome. Really, I think those first 5 or 6 games before they get to the bye week is going to be, in my opinion, the most important stretch for the Saints to see whether or not they can weather this storm, because things could really unravel quickly with all of the key players that they have out. But hopefully maybe some of these guys' projections on when they're able to come back from a health standpoint, like Michael Thomas, or these suspensions don't last as long as they could, and maybe they're going to have some of their best players available sooner than they think.
Yeah, and I don't mind being on the optimistic end of this. I'm going to put the Saints win total at 10 like Nick. I think there's a better chance, too, that it goes up than goes down. Remember, all those suspended guys will return. And in theory, Mike Thomas will be back and fully healthy, at least for the second half of the season. Look, the Saints were extremely limited in what they could do offensively because of Drew Brees' injuries last season, and they won 12 games. I like the over on the 9. And remember, the Bears got to the playoffs at 8-8 last year because you're now taking 7 teams per conference. I think the Saints will be a playoff team. Now, guys, thanks. We are back to wrap up this Eye on the Black and Gold training camp special in a minute. Training camp has begun. The Saints will get their first day off on Sunday. The first day in full pads is Monday. Now, once drills began today, cameras are shut down, so our highlights from day 1 of training camp are not super exciting, but it is Saints football, and it is back. For all of us here at Eyewitness Sports, thanks for watching. Good night.